Welcome to Freedom Cast, where your hosts, Jordan and Miranda, show you how to get just a little bit more out of life. Are you ready to leave normal behind?
Welcome to Freedom Cast, everybody. This week, we have the pleasure of interviewing Eric Scott Burdon, one of my newer blogger friends that I happened to meet on Twitter when I was sharing some of his stuff. He actually reached out to me, sent me an email, and said, "Hey, dude, we should, help each other with this whole blogging thing." And then it just kind of took off from there. For the last about month and a half, we've been emailing each other pretty much every day. Just getting to know each other a little bit more. So we decided to bring him on this show and talk about what he does, and just get his story too, because we love hearing people's stories. And that's one of our favorite parts about this podcast is we've been learning, different strategies and tips from people. But more than anything, we're getting to know their story too, which is just so cool because everyone has their story. Everyone has bits and pieces of feedback that they can offer that can make a huge difference for a lot of people. So without further ado, we will bring on Eric Scott Burdon onto this show. Well, Eric, we can get started here. Thank you so much for joining Freedom Cast and being willing to be on the show and, dedicate some of your time to answering some of our questions.
Yeah, and thank you for inviting me.
Absolutely.
Really
We're happy to have you. I know you're actually one of my newer blogger friends, but it's been cool to get to know you a little bit more and just to kind of grow together. I know we've been kind of giving each other pointers and, pretty much almost, sometimes daily emails back and forth. So that's been really cool. I was, from the beginning, watching your videos and stuff, I was like, that guy's a cool guy just because your videos are very positive and I definitely get the sense that you have the right message for people that you want, to help them, just to get better and to better themselves through that positivity. And I just think that's really cool.
Don't you feel like they should have some sort of like cutesy abbreviation for blogger friends? Like,
I don't know.
I feel like there should be a name.
I don't know.
Well. At least the first thing that's popping into my head is Blogger Bros, but that's it. It's like, but it's more like with a guy and a guy thing. With that sort of one. So it's
it would only really work for one set.
Yeah, it only worked for one set of So it's like it's.
You could go blogger bro,
female, and it's like
blogger bros,
gals,
blogger gals, and then what's the male and female? Blogger, I don't know.
Blogger pair.
Blogger pair.
Whatever. I don't know.
Anyway, I don't know.
Yeah, we could theory craft this for
Yeah, we could just spend a whole episode talking about this, but
the specifics of labels and.
Well, Eric, I'm going to be asking you the questions tonight, and then Miranda is going to be popping in and doing like the color commentary. So. Lots of times we'll switch back and forth who's doing that, but tonight I'll be asking the questions for you.
All right, cool.
So if you just could tell our listeners just a little bit about yourself, kind of what you do, your family, I know you're doing that 90-day challenge, so
yes.
Anything you want to just introduce yourself with, feel free to go ahead.
All right. Well, my name is Eric Burdon. My technical writer or author pen name. My pen name is Eric S. Burdon, just because there is another guy by the name of Eric Burdon, and he is I think he's in his 60s now, and he's a famous rock and roll player. So yeah, my parents named me after that guy, but so I
cool.
Every time. Or at least I tell people you can't really Google me because if you type in Eric Burdon, you'll find this old rock singer guy, and you won't be able to find me.
That did happen with me when I was trying to find your blog the one time. I typed your name in and then was introduced to that singer and everything. So I couldn't find you by typing that in. I was able to find it when I typed in the Eric S.
Yeah, that's why I tell people is always type in the S if you want to find me, because you won't be able to find me. But yeah, I'm a blogger and a writer. I've been writing for the past almost like 3 years. Yeah, it's been 3 years since I've been writing on a regular basis. I also have a YouTube channel, and yeah, that's really about it for me. As far as my niche specifically, it's around self-improvement, positivity, mindset, and providing action-oriented advice for people. Yeah, that's well, it's who I am. And as far
Awesome.
as like where I'm living at right now, I'm living at my parents' place for the time being. I used to live in
Nothing wrong with that.
Halifax. Yeah, absolutely. But I used to be living in Halifax, Nova Scotia for a little while for school, and then I realized, hey, it's not really for me. I really want to be getting into what I'm doing right now with YouTubing and my blog and writing. And yeah, that's basically my story for the time being. I wrote some of that stuff also in a book as well, which I published in May.
Awesome. Yeah, and I'll certainly, I know where to find that book, so I'll certainly add that to our show notes so anyone listening can go and find that. I think there's probably a link to it on your blog, but I'll put a link to the book specifically too.
Yeah.
And what's the name of the book and what is it about?
It's called The Shy Boy I Once Knew. It's about, basically what I wanted to do with the whole purpose of the book was to provide a sort of a background. So if people purchased the book, they could understand more about me and the reasons why I did certain things, basically, because one thing with my YouTube channel before I changed it recently was that it had a whole bunch of ancient videos of me vlogging, as well as I was sharing thoughts of the day, as well as just like a whole slew of other things. And basically I got rid of those, but the premise of the book was to help with understanding, like, this was my journey, this is the sort of thing that I'm going through, so people can understand, okay, here's why he actually has those videos and why it's like a jumbled mess, basically. But I said, like, it's not really professional. I want to get rid of that and make some changes to it. And I think just like leaving it explaining it in the book, like, here's some of the steps that I went through, or like, here's some of my journey, then I feel like that's a little bit more important. But basically,
that's cool.
Yeah, so basically it was just talking about some of my struggles for business, but also a bit about my past and like the whole premise of the blog and my YouTube channel, like why I'm doing this specific thing out of all the other things that I could be doing. I decided this is the pathway I want to go, and basically my past kind of explains why. So like the first half of the book explains why and some of the stuff that I was learning and growing from, and how that actually pertains to my business by, how it pertains to my business. And I also provided like a couple of tools and helpful things to explain, like, or to organize some of the stuff that I've put together in there.
Cool.
Or
that's awesome.
To succeed, yeah.
Gotcha. So that's kind of like your blogging stuff. So besides blogging and YouTubing, can you just tell us about some of your other hobbies? And if there's none, that's fine. Sometimes I feel like all I do is write and blog and do this stuff. So sometimes when people ask me, hey, Jordan, what do you do for fun? I seriously freeze and I don't know what to say at times.
Yeah.
Now I have answers, like I love hiking and I love playing video games, but does that same thing happen to you, or do you have other things outside of it that you like to do?
Well, I'm not much into hiking, but I do enjoy walking. I walk pretty much every single day. I try to do that. Because again, like, I'm looking after my health. I really want to be improving that, and that's basically where my YouTube content has gone for the time being, is that 90-day Fit for Life challenge. So it's just looking after myself, but I tend to walk every single day. That is one thing, and I play a lot of video games as well, like to the point that I've actually I used to have some gaming channels on YouTube a long time ago. I took them down, but I am thinking, like, in the back of my head right now, like, hey, why don't I start up another gaming channel? And it's like, no, not right now. But definitely, like, that is something that I want to be doing again, is is starting up a gaming channel at some point, but yeah, just because I play so many video games, or at least I play the same video game so many times, but I've dedicated like a lot of hours into it.
Yeah, that's so cool.
Yeah.
Can you talk a little bit more about the like gaming videos and stuff, because that would be a really cool thing for me to just learn about.
Yeah.
Kind of how would you get into that, and like what is I don't know. What's the right question, Miranda?
Well, I guess for someone like me, I don't really understand. Like, I'm not a big video game person. My favorite video game is Mario Kart and Just Dance.
Yeah, that's good.
I guess for, people that aren't really big into video games, what are you kind of like gleaning from those videos? What, what's the purpose, I guess?
Yeah. Well, it for one, I think like the biggest thing when it comes to gaming, or at least like Let's Players, because that's their technical term behind them, as Let's Players, and like one of the biggest things is basically their personality, more so than the actual gameplay. Like obviously, like the gameplay is really good as well, is important. Like obviously, you want to pick a game that is recognized. Well, not necessarily recognized, but at least like has enough that you can actually talk about.
Okay.
So like when it comes to Mario Kart, like Mario Kart is still pretty good because you have like a competitive theme to it. So it's obviously like really good for a sort of like a collab sort of series you could actually do with that. But I find like if it was single player, it might be a little difficult to actually come up with content just like playing Mario Kart solo or yeah. So basically, as far as the game goes, it has to have enough stuff in it to actually be able to talk about for at least like a decent amount of time. But also the more important thing is basically your personality and your reaction to particular games, or your reaction to the games that you actually decide to play, pretty much. So
that's cool. I feel like that's such a unique thing, and that's so cool that you're thinking about getting into that. I'd love to know like more about that when you actually jump into it. It'd be cool to see. It's something I've never really watched, but I've heard a lot of people talk about. Yeah. So it definitely sounds like a very interesting thing to get into and do, and very kind of maybe I don't know if it's like a newly popular, but maybe something that will be even more popular in the future.
I don't think it's not pretty new. Like basically the reason why I got into YouTube in the first place was because of that. Like I started watching a few of the bigger YouTubers back in the day, and I think I don't even remember when I started watching on YouTube on the regular. I think it was probably like I don't even remember. So definitely it's like a long time.
Okay.
Definitely it's been like a long time. Like probably after, like maybe 2011, 2012, maybe around there. So yeah, it's been a while. So they've definitely been around, but I think now it's starting to be a lot more accepted. Like some of the biggest issues that Let's Players have faced with is basically copyright, because again, like it's a gigantic company that's producing these video games, and a lot of people are like, well, we don't want people to just sit down and like watch the game and never buy our games and that sort of thing. It's like it was the same thing with like music. Or like CDs and like music stores actually having a place where you're actually where you're able to play like the entire playlist. Like there's cases like if you find like a particular band and you want to know all the songs that they've played, or like a particular album to test to see if you want to buy it or not. A lot of music stores these days now have access to like their entire playlist, so you can actually like listen to their entire songs. But a long time ago, the music industry actually ran into some complications with that, because it's like because they've only, because bands only made like a few like really good songs, and then the rest of them weren't really like as great. In fact, like they were total garbage. So that's basically like the sort of thing with the music industry was like, well, the music industry, like basically the consumers came back and said, well, if your bands actually produced really good songs, then maybe people would buy more CDs and your products and actually invest in the band. So that's basically where they're kind of at with gaming, with the big gaming companies and Let's Players. Is like not every single person who's watching a Let's Player is just sitting there and watching it. They if they find that it's a really good game, they go out and buy it. Like a lot of the games that I've been watching, like I do want to be buying them at some point in time. I just can't right now, but like there's been a few that I've gone out and bought just because I watched someone else play it and said, "Huh, that's a really interesting game. I want to play that game too." So
yeah, I think that copyright issue, it's kind of fun to talk about that because it definitely, it goes into the video game stuff, it goes into the music industry, and then even the authoring and publishing industry as well. Because I've read about that just with, and it's even an option when you're publishing a book. Do you want to have these books' rights or the rights to this book protected? I think Amazon has its own thing called digital right management, or I think they just put DRM. Yeah. And what that means is they try to prevent other people from downloading and then sharing your book to other people. Yeah. Now there's differing opinions on that. I'm more in the camp of, I don't care how you got my book. I'm just happy that you're reading my book. Yeah. But I can see why like big companies might be very anxious and nervous about their book getting put into a lot of people's hands for free. Mm-hmm. But I guess it's the same issue with any company. Like in your game case, if there's people watching that game, hopefully, that company is looking at it, hey, that's free marketing for me. Yeah. That's someone that may not have even been interested in my game, and now they're watching someone else like have this great time playing it, or frustrating time, whatever, I guess, whatever kind of video you make. Yeah. But I think of it like that. I think of it as like free advertising. So I always think it's kind of crazy when companies are kind of getting upset at that and want to go for this whole copyright thing. But yeah, that's kind of my take on the whole thing as well. Is like, yeah, it's absolutely, it's free marketing, but also it's ensuring that you're putting together a quality game. Like you have like a couple of channels like the Angry Video Game Nerd, for example. He's basically just a reviewer of really bad old games, and like the amount of them is just astronomical, and there's no way, like at the time you can't really tell because all you had was like the Sears catalog, or like you had those ancient Christmas catalogs that were like the size of a freaking dictionary, filled with just like a whole bunch of stuff, and there's no way that you really can tell whether the game was actually really good or if it was just an absolutely just a terrible game until you actually paid the $20 or $30 and then popped it into your Nintendo Entertainment System and then realized, yeah, it was a crappy game. Yeah, I love that there's reviews and stuff now that we can actually type in something on Amazon and check reviews real quick, or pop it into YouTube, like review of whatever, and you get people's honest opinions. I think that's it's super cool.
It is really cool how with the technology they do there's new problems and issues, but just just like jobs that people do nowadays, blogging, YouTubing, are just things that, 30 years ago, like just wasn't even a thing at all. So I think it's really cool how technology has kind of even changed the workplace and changed the issues and the benefits. I just think it's really cool.
Yeah, I think so too.
Yeah, so that will segue us right into the next question, Eric. So you kind of already said how long ago you started with blogging and YouTubing. Yeah. So if you just want to talk a little bit more about that, as I guess it's the thing you do full time, correct?
Yes. This is
Cool.
something that I do full time. Yeah.
Yeah, maybe just talk about that a little bit more and how like you got into like maybe about how you decided to do it full time.
Yeah.
And then, yeah, so go ahead with that. Then I'll ask the next part.
All right. So I actually explained that in my book, as far as like the whole reasoning behind it. But like, well, basically, as far as like the backstory goes, I started my channel because I wanted to improve my speaking skills, and I said, and I thought to myself, the best way to get myself out there is to like record some videos outside of, well, yeah, the best way to improve my speaking skills is to start speaking and speaking to a large audience. And the best way to do that, at least with the resources that I had, was to start up a YouTube channel and start uploading videos on a regular basis. So that was basically the whole idea with my channel was, yeah, I wanted to improve my speaking skills. Now, as I said before, I did start a couple of channels before in the past, but they flopped. They didn't do very well. One of the gaming channels, I got really bored with the game that I was playing, and obviously that kind of spilled into my content because I just sounded boring and uninterested in the game that I was playing. So obviously there wasn't going to be that much interest, and I said, well, man, I like nobody's watching my videos, and I said, you know what, I'll just stop YouTubing at that point in time. But this was like the first time that I actually started to develop a habit of posting on a regular basis on YouTube, even though, again, I wasn't getting that many views. How I saw it was, instead of worrying about all the results that I was getting, instead it was focusing on like the more benefits that are on my side, where it's like I'm improving myself, I'm being more comfortable with myself, and I'm just sharing my thoughts, and I'm able to, and I noticed at least like a little bit of progression. And that's basically the reason why I have all of those old videos, and I deleted them not too long ago, because for one, like right now, as far as like YouTubing goes, the reason why I'm doing that is because I want to really help people and want to be sharing as much information as I possibly can, and information that can really help them. And if they see any of my older content, it's kind of a misbrand on myself because it's all over the place. It's not really congruent with what I'm doing currently. So back then,
that's cool, Eric. I wanted to jump in real quick and talk about that. I think that's so cool that you're kind of learning by trial.
Yeah. And
I think that's such a great concept that our listeners can really jive with, in that like you don't have to all of a sudden be great at public speaking. You don't have to all of a sudden be great at writing, or all of a sudden be great at anything, but actually just trying it and doing it can make a huge difference. I know that I'm personally a much better writer than I used to be, even just a few years ago, just because I've been doing it on a consistent basis. Yeah. And that's so cool that you say that as part of your journey, because that definitely is something I think people can jive with, in that, that's the one great way to learn. I mean, going to school and learning from a professor and learning that stuff is great, but you're never really going to learn something unless you start doing it. Yeah. So that's so cool that you took that perspective as, hey, I'm gonna do these just to get better at public speaking, and I'm gonna do it for that reason. I think that's really cool. Yeah.
So that was basically the premise of YouTubing. And as far as blogging goes, like blogging was just like, hey, it's something that I want to do. And actually, like, writing in general was a concept that's popped up in the past, and I've actually been talking about it recently, or at least in the past, like, posts here and there. I actually talk a little bit about it, and I said, like, the reason why I'm doing writing is because I was told a long time ago, back in like 2009, that writing was actually really good for me. And this was still during the time where I was struggling to get out of my shell and improve myself in that sort of sense, and deal with my emotions. because basically what happened, basically like, the whole reason, or at least like part of my shyness, was that I didn't get to experience a lot of emotions. So basically I was experiencing the emotions that you would typically experience like in your early to mid-teens. Those kinds of emotions that you're going through during that period, I was actually experiencing when I was like 18, 19, 20 years old, basically.
Gotcha.
So, so writing would actually help out a lot with coping through that and actually understanding myself. And I actually did do that like once in a while, but not very frequently. And it was only, again, like 2015 that I sat down and said, I want to be committing to this. I want to start writing on a regular basis. And as far as my writing goes, it was all like really technical, more opinion based sort of stuff. And then it started turning into what my content is now, where I'm providing a lot of personal stories. I'm sharing stories and tying basically all of my articles that I'm writing are basically things that I'm already experiencing recently, or that I'm going through. So I'm able to tie that back in and explain that in my writing.
Yeah, definitely. I very much, and just to add a side note there, I definitely enjoy reading your posts on Medium. I think they're really valuable, and I mean, I've seen a lot of other people, given whatever Medium does, the claps, or I think
that's what it is. Yeah, claps.
I guess applauses. It's like the Facebook, the equivalent of a Facebook like. Yeah. For people that don't know Medium, and I'm just getting into it as well. Actually, on your suggestion, I've been doing more stuff there. So, thank you for that. Appreciate that.
Yeah.
I've been getting a lot of claps from you.
Yeah.
Well, yeah, Eric clapped for me a couple times. I don't know if anyone else has, but
yeah. Well, it's something. It's something.
Yeah, it's cool. It's just another platform just to start writing. But I wanted to add that in there, that I think your posts are really cool. So
yeah, thank you.
We'll switch here. Well, not really switch. So you do the YouTubing and blogging and writing.
Yeah.
But what's your main focus? Maybe not out of there, but if you know, what's the main thing that you're working on right now?
Well, the main thing that I'm working on right now is basically marketing. Marketing is like at least like I've been talking about it recently from time to time, at least on my personal blog, and I say like marketing is kind of the bane of my existence. I really like it.
I can feel you on that one. Yeah, it's tough.
Like I really love it. Like at least like in school and university, I was studying to be an accountant. But one thing that because obviously I had to take like a few marketing courses, I really liked marketing. Even though as far as marketing goes in school, it's more like the biology of business, where it's like it has a whole bunch of technical terms and not a whole lot of like. At least in university, you did have the sort of like the dissecting of the frogs type of thing, where you actually had a company where you had to do some marketing for. At least there was a couple of cases of that, but like there was just a whole bunch of terms that didn't really help you out all that much, and that was the sort of thing. But at the same time, I found that it was really interesting because it added a more creative flair to it, that you actually had to like write a lot of things out, and there was more creativity behind it, as opposed to just like accounting, where it's just numbers.
Yeah. So are you focusing on like building relationships, or doing like outreach and kind of trying to do that, or what exactly within that are you focusing on?
So, well, it's a number of things. For one, I want to be building up my brand. That's one of the biggest things, because again, with my whole YouTube channel, there was a sort of like a misconception of my brand. If some people watch some of my older content, then there would be a disconnection if they actually saw some of my more recent ones. So I got rid of all of that, all of those old videos, so people who go to my page can see basically like the gist of it. Like I still have some of my older videos just because they still pertain a little bit to my brand, in the sense that it's more positive, it's action oriented, and it's motivating and that sort of thing. So people can still sort of get like a feel for it. But most of my content on there is basically my 90-day Fit for Life challenge content which is still kind of wishy-washy a little bit with the style, but like at least as far as the brand goes, where I want my content to be positive, motivating, and action oriented, it still captures that sort of essence that I'm looking for in my brand. So it's just passing that around on my social media content, in my writing, and on my posts on Medium, but also reaching out to other people, which was the main reason why I approached you and I said, like, hey, we should work together and all that, because I realize it's the most important thing with blogging is connections and getting to know other people, and just making connections in general.
Yeah, and I think that's amazing, because I think that relationships is where marketing kind of boils down to in all aspects. I mean, that's where it boiled down to when, I had to rent people apartments in our retirement community that we just recently left. It boiled down to when that person came in, you had to build a relationship with them, and, that they were buying from you and not buying they're buying the product, but they're buying you more than anything. And I just think it's so cool how often, or I feel like always, it boils down to relationships, because we're relational beings, and it's about working with other people. I think it's always hard to find out exactly how to do that. I've definitely struggled with that in blogging and fitting in the marketing in that. But it's been a fun kind of challenge, and I think that was pretty cool how you just reached out to me and said, hey, we should work together. And I was like, yeah, we should. That's a great idea. Why didn't I connect with you? And I just think that was cool. And, it definitely sparked me to want to do that with other people, and just to kind of just to get out there as much as I can.
Makes me happy.
Yeah, so I appreciate that. Let's move on, Eric. So what would you say is one thing that makes you a little bit different? It could be anything.
Like one of the biggest things that would probably set me apart is, that's a tough question.
Yeah, it's a tough question.
Yeah.
But basically it's just asking, what's like, I mean, I guess blogging and YouTubing can be the answer if you want it to be. I think that's not everyone does that. I mean, not everyone dedicates their time to doing that. So
there is that for sure. That is one thing that sets me apart. But I think it's more of my my personality, or at least like one thing that at least when it comes to writing, obviously each and every single person has their own different voices, and I think that's really what sets me apart the most, is basically just my voice, which is not like anything earth-shattering or like incredibly different, because like every writer has a different voice, but still like it still is unique in the sense that like when the experiences that I'm going through are the experiences that I'm going through, and I'm the only person that's able to actually explain them in this particular fashion, because it's just the things that I'm experiencing myself, and this is how I'm analyzing all of it and looking at all of the corners and that sort of thing. So I think that's really
absolutely.
I think that's really what sets me apart is just like the general uniqueness of my voice and how I analyze everything.
Awesome. So what are some major hurdles that you've had to overcome? Maybe if you want to just answer hurdles that you've had to overcome to get where you are now, like with the blogging and YouTubing, or it doesn't have to relate to that, but if you wanted to, that's fine.
Well, I actually have a few hurdles. First off, of course, there's marketing. That whole thing, because at least like in the past, I've definitely taken a bunch of marketing courses. Like I've invested in myself in that sense by taking some marketing courses, but at least as far as like the techniques and stuff that I've learned from them, they haven't really gotten that much results. So that's basically the reason why I'm kind of reluctant to marketing in the first place, is like, well, I've already tried some articles in the past, or I've consulted some of the articles in the past, and they haven't really worked. So what's going to, like, I have a little bit of like negative or pessimism in that sense, because it's like, well, how is it going to be working now? So at least as far as my content goes, I've been writing to like pump myself up and to encourage myself and that sort of thing. And I think like that's really what's helping me with at least convincing me to delve more into marketing and start pushing myself in that sort of sense, instead of just waiting and like looking for a coach or something like that. Well, yeah, basically.
Gotcha.
But one of the other, I think one of the biggest hurdles was, and still is something that I can potentially face, is basically like people presuming or people just telling me like just get a job, or at least like get a 9-to-5 job, because I've been doing this again for like 3 years and I'm living in my parents' place, so it's easy for a lot of people to just look at this entire situation and just say like, man, this guy should just get a job. Like, seriously. He's been going at it for 3 years, and it's really easy to do that sort of thing. And I've definitely been facing that a little bit with my parents. They've gotten a lot better now, and they've kind of changed the question to like, are you making any money yet from this? So they're a little bit more encouraging in that sense now. But beforehand, they were really pushing me to look for a job and all that. And I said, it's not really for me. Like I spent 7 years studying accounting, but at the same time, it's like, it's not something that I'm really interested in. So it was kind of just going over that hurdle of trying to convince them. But I know at least like it still is a sort of a looming thing now, because yeah, I'm not really making that much money. And obviously when a lot of people come in and look at my work, they can just say like, man, this guy should just get a job already, and not really like engage with my brain, kind of just look at all the bad sides, or at least like the more negative sides of what it is that I'm doing, as opposed to just looking at what sort of value that they're actually getting from my content.
Yeah, and I definitely can, as you're saying that, I'm like, yep. I definitely can relate with that, with people not really understanding.
Yeah.
What I'm doing. I'm doing other things on the side other than just blogging, but I've been doing it for the past couple years, and I still have people that, say, hey, what are you doing? And I talk about the blogging and stuff, and they're like, well, what else? Or what are your plans for the future? And I'm like, no, it's to do that. And it's just something that's not generally understood.
Yeah.
So that's cool you shared that as a hurdle, because it's definitely, I think, for any blogger or any blogger or YouTuber or online business person starting out, that's going to be a very big hurdle that we have to get over, because it's not something that's understood, and people just expect you to have a job. I think that's kind of just how it goes nowadays, and and that's one reason of this show, is to try to get rid of that stereotype, as everyone needs to have a 9-to-5 job that is salaried, and you need to be aiming to get raises and bonuses and
Yeah.
And I have to admit, like, I was like one of the people that just didn't really understand it. It took Jordan probably like a year or two to get me kind of on board, because I always support all of his crazy ideas, but I just
you think they're less crazy now.
Yeah. Over the years now, I can see like how we could like how this has grown so much and how much he loves it, and it's just kind of cool, because I was definitely one of those like, how do you like make money on a blog? Like, that doesn't even like didn't make any sense to me. And now I'm like, I know too much of the terminology now, and now Jordan's got me all like in the entrepreneurial spirit. So
like the one thing that another thing that I want to be talking about as well is actually, whenever I talk about this subject, like there's always this constant thing that I always bring up, is that when it comes to advice only works in certain since every single person is different, some advice actually works and some advice actually doesn't. It's like the same thing that I'm facing with my marketing, and that's basically the sort of logic that I'm using with marketing is, well, I'm just not finding the right information or the right person who's saying the right things to make everything click. It's like the same thing with advice, is that not every single piece of advice is actually going to be working. Like, whenever people say, like, man, you should get like a 9-to-5 job, to me, I say, I absolutely agree with you, but it doesn't work for me because I've already tried looking for a job. I get depressed about it. And in the end, it's like I half-assed the application that I spend like an hour doing when I could just be writing and getting my name out there and potentially earning like the articles that I produce are going to be permanently there unless I decide to delete them at some point in time. But the articles that I'm producing are permanent revenue streams for the rest of my, the permanent revenue streams that I'm producing. Whereas with that application that took me an hour to do, that's just going to be gone. Like it has the potential to earn me money, but it's not something that I'm looking to sustain myself with, because again, I plan on moving to other things, planning on starting my own business and that sort of thing. So at least like as far as my whole viewpoint with getting a job for myself in particularly, I don't really find it that it's really appealing to me because I'm spending all of this time and energy to put together something that I'm just going to leave after a certain period of time, or even like a very short period of time.
Yep, I agree with that 100%. That definitely, and it doesn't work for everyone. There are some people out there that want to work a 9-to-5 job and want to have that. I was going to say security. There's a lot of times that it's not secure. I personally think that something like that is less secure than building your own brand. And like you said, building your own content. I'm definitely sold on that. Just getting out there and doing something for yourself, because yes, that application is not making you any money. And then even if you end up getting a job with that application, you're just trading hours for dollars. You're not, people would argue and say, well, you want to get like, a promotion and you're better place in the company, but still at the end of the day, you're working for someone else and you're not creating your own future and you're not building your own brand.
Yeah, you're not building an asset on your end. You're building up someone else's.
Exactly. So, we're definitely like-minded with that. So it's good to talk to someone else that gets that. And I know so I definitely understand your frustrations with that hurdle. And, when Miranda's family asks like, well, does the thing Jordan's doing make any money? And it's like, oh, how do we get into describing that? But but yeah, that's cool.
Potential. So it has potential.
Yeah, it has potential.
Is the best way to explain it.
Yes, I think that's good. Yeah, I think I'll start using that more often.
Yeah, it definitely has.
The potential is there to make much more than you would make at a normal job, and like I'm happier doing it, and like I'm not working for someone else. So it just works in all those regards. Another
good way to explain it is what you're doing is basically it's similar to like a steamroller. So as far as like, the whole analogy with the steamroller is that it takes a really long time for it to build up. Again, like I've been doing this for 3 years, and typically you don't start seeing any money until like 2 years of blogging. That's at least like a couple of people have been saying something like that, that it takes about 2 years to start seeing some money. But basically once you start actually making money, then you have that momentum, and it's not going to like roll back. Like the steamroller is still going to still keep going, and it's not going to slow down. It's not going to lose momentum. So it's just that initial startup where you have to put a lot of your time and energy into getting it to move in the first place is really where the hurdle is.
Yeah, exactly.
Essentially. But after that, you're golden.
Yep. Well, Eric, I could personally talk about that with you all day.
Oh, yeah.
But I'll ask you 2 more questions and we'll wrap up here.
Yeah.
What is one piece of advice you would give our listeners that just might want a little bit more out of life?
The best piece of advice that I would give would be to figure out yourself. I think that's one of the most important things, because like, at least like again with the whole like the job's not really suited for me. It like the reason why I figured that all of that out was I started asking myself questions and I started to learn a lot more about myself. So at least like that's one of the good things that I like about writing is, and at least my style of writing is that it helps me with understanding myself and understanding my thought process and what sort of things I can actually fix and start looking at things a little bit differently. So really it's just asking yourself some questions and taking the time to understand yourself thoroughly. That was definitely a big thing. And also like developing opinions as well, because one thing that I realized early on in life, like when I was trying to overcome my shyness, I didn't really have like my own thoughts or opinions on stuff. I basically had my own opinions based on what other people's content was, or what other people were saying, and I just took that and used that as my own. I didn't really like tailor it towards my beliefs, and that was one thing with my accounting was my parents proposed that to me, and I thought, hey, this is a good idea because I like money, and accountants apparently make a lot of money, so I figured like let's try this whole accounting thing and see where it goes. And then like year 6 into my 7 years, I realized accounting's not really for me. I actually kind of like sales and marketing and like the more creative aspects. I don't want to be sitting at a desk just writing down numbers, or like, well, more like typing it into a computer. But like I didn't really see myself in that sort of case. And that was when I started actually asking questions and figuring out like, who am I? Like, what do I want to do? What do I want to be getting out of life? Why am I here? And all of that stuff. So really like that's one of the biggest things is asking yourself questions and figuring yourself out is definitely like one thing that you can really help with that, and setting goals. And then, yeah.
Yeah, and I think that's awesome because I was extremely shy growing up, and I just feel like it's been really cool kind of to see myself grow in that way. And you kind of, I forget who said it, but they said to figure out your why, always ask why you're doing something. Yeah. And I think that's...
Yeah. Sorry.
No, you're good. That's just, I think it's so important because a lot of times I think you kind of just float through life and you just feel like things are just happening to you and you're just kind of doing what you feel is expected. And then you get to a point in your life where you're like, well, why am I doing this? And it's just kind of that self-reflection that's really important.
Yeah. That's actually from, I started learning about why, or setting whys in Charles Duhigg's book, Smarter, Faster, Better. And that was when I first started hearing about it, because he had a case where there was a guy, I think pretty much our age, like a millennial, who didn't really like, kind of just like floated through life, didn't really know what he wanted to do, and he decided to sign up to the Marine Corps. And basically through that training, they decided, at least as far as like the U.S. Marine Corps training goes, like it's really thorough. It's one of the best quality military training out there, and a lot of it is based like self-discovery and that sort of thing. And that was one thing that they did was like defining a why and getting and actually asking why you want to be doing particular things. So whenever you had a hurdle, you ask, why are you doing this? And you tie it back into a reason, and that reason motivates you and it gives you more of a purpose to live.
Yeah, I think that's great, Eric. That's awesome advice. So we'll wrap up here. Where can people go to find more out about you?
Okay. Well, I have a bunch of social medias. I have Facebook, and you can find that at Eric S. Burdon. I have also Instagram, which is Eric S. Burdon as well. There's underscores between the Eric and the S, so it's Eric _S_ Burdon. I have Twitter, which is at @ES_Burdon. And there's also my YouTube channel, which is Eric S. Burdon as well. And there's also, of course, my blog, which is Eric Scott Burdon. So there's...
There you go.
Yeah, I think
Don't forget the S.
Yeah, and do not forget the S. I'm sure that you can just go on Google and type in Eric S. Burdon, you'll probably find me. Yeah, I have the same image for pretty much everything for all my social media, so it's pretty fluid in that sense. Yeah, that's it.
I feel like I kind of want to check out the other Eric Burdon too while I'm at it.
He does have he does have some decent music.
Cool. Well, we'll check out both, or Miranda can check out both websites and the other.
You've already checked them trying to find me.
Yeah.
Yeah.
Well, thank you so much, Eric, for being on the show. Make sure to stick around so that the file can upload, and that's good and everything. But we appreciate you spending your Tuesday night with us and talking with us a little bit more about this. I personally love this episode. It was fun to get to chat with you. Yeah. Like I said, I know we've chatted before, but actually like chatting and talking is cool versus just an email. So that was good. Yeah. It was fun getting to know a little bit more about you. So, thank you. We appreciate it.
Thank you for having me. I really appreciate being here.
Hey guys, thank you so much for listening to this podcast. I know we had a great time recording it, and hopefully you learned something that you can take away from it. So if you enjoyed it, please leave a review or subscribe. That would make us very happy. So we'll hear from you soon.
And we'll catch you on the flip side.